So, the ladies of my book group were gathered on my deck, and we were trying to choose a date for our next meeting. I said to just work around me because I would be out of town. My friend Wendy asked where I'd be, and I said at a yoga and meditation workshop. It has been my experience that whenever I say those words, eyes glaze over and the conversation moves on. But not this time. Wendy said, "Really? What kind of yoga?" At that moment, I realized I had two choices: answer the question or lie to my good friends. I decided that honesty, although the more difficult choice, was the best policy. And so I said, "Well, Tantra." And Wendy said, "Tantra? What exactly is that?" My book group is always lots of fun, but that night we discussed not only where the crawdads sing, but also sacred sexuality. But let's back up a few years. The first Tantra workshop I ever went to with my then gentleman friend and now husband, Bill, was in 2010 at the Omega Institute in the Hudson Valley. Although I am a child of the 60s, going to a Tantra workshop was something that was way outside of my comfort zone. But Bill was pretty enthusiastic when he suggested it, and so I eventually said yes. The workshop began Friday evening with everyone dancing around the room while making eye contact with people we had never met before in order to ease the transition from the outside world. Saturday morning, there actually was a meditation. It involved breathing and movement, accompanied by intense primal drumming. Blindfolds were optional. In the afternoon, we learned how to create a sacred space with our partner and all about the wave of bliss. No matter what it sounds like, it's about breathing. That evening, we were assigned some home play, which I have to point out is exactly what it sounds like. Sunday morning, everyone returned to the big meeting room just in time for our final activity of the weekend. Although I never would have predicted it when I walked into that room on Friday, by Sunday, I was feeling pretty comfortable about this whole Tantra workshop thing. Well, maybe except for the blindfolds, but everything else I was pretty okay with. Anyway, while we were at Omega, we met a couple who were kind of our age, and the woman had grown kids like I do. Sunday, during lunch, I asked her, "Where do your kids think you are this weekend?" And that's where I learned the yoga and meditation trick. She said that if she told her kids she was going to a yoga and meditation workshop, the conversation stopped right there. So I followed her suggestion, and it worked really well for a very long time. I reported it in several Christmas letters. I posted about it on Facebook. I even mentioned it to my ex-husband, hoping he would ask for details. But no one ever asks anything until that evening on my deck. So here's what I told my book group. Tantra is an ancient spiritual practice that teaches you how to find pleasure in life. It's about spontaneity, love of self, and true intimacy with your partner. It teaches you to find the divine within as well as in the rest of the universe. So no matter what you may have been thinking, it is not about sex, just about sex. So Wendy listened closely, and when I was finished, she said, "Well, that sounds very interesting, dear." Wendy always calls me dear. I practice Iyengar yoga. And just like that, we moved on to the business of finding a date for our next meeting. Now, here's something I haven't told my book group. But you're here. So Bill and I signed up for another workshop at Omega in June of 2020, Tantra, the yoga of love, but of course it was canceled. So instead, we decided to take some private virtual lessons with the tantric goddess Lokita. Since the sessions were every other week, at the end of each meeting, she assigned a whole bunch of home play. And as it turned out, we had no choice but to stay at home a lot that year.